Hi everyone, my name is Winfrey Hawkins again, and we are going to be talking about the face or the head and how to turn the head. And we're going to expand upon our previous lesson, which we added a jaw. Now, one thing to know about drawing heads is once you start getting, the more complicated it starts getting, you might want to have one of these. It's like a little reference, little skull guy. And the reason why you want to have one of these is to help understand the anatomy of how the head is made. So I'm going to take his jaw off. So see this jaw here? Get it in focus. All right. His jaw is like a V, right? Underneath it, under this chin area, it's like a V here. This area, and how before on the last video we talked about how this cylindrical area here, this circular area right here, that part connects jawbone here like that. I'm gonna try to show this so you guys can see it here. Let me connect that back on there. So we have this, right? So you see how before in our last video we talked about how the jaw connects to the skull. Trying to get it on. There we go. Right, how the jaw connects to the skull, right? This area here, to this here, and we drew this ball shape, and then we added this shape. We had this shape here. Okay. Now, another thing to understand when you're drawing the head or the skull is that your eyes sit inside of a socket, right? We have to see these big holes. Those are big sockets that the eyes fit in. And these are the nasal cavities. So this bone right here, that bone, that's this part right there. And you also have your cheeks here. And this is going to be very important that you kind of understand the basics of what makes up a head, because we're going to be drawing, this is going to be a more complicated version, the most complicated version of our head. This is what you would use. These are the building blocks for you, how you would draw real people, okay? So I'm going to switch views here. So we have our first version that we did just using a basic circle, basic shapes, right? And we had our center line and our brow line, right? Looking straight ahead here, going up a little bit, moving downwards, rotating that a little bit. And then we graduated to this type idea where we have our ball, just like our skull here, right? He has this ball, and you added this jaw area. That's the same thing we did here. So we have this area and we have the jaw area, and then we have our center line, of course, and we worked on how to turn that, right, to make it look in a direction. Okay. So we're going to do a more complicated version of this now, and we're going to work on some how to align some of the features in the head. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off with our basic circle, like a rough, circle that you don't have to really. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything. You just have to, just a general idea. Okay, and then we're gonna draw this center line. And the reason why we're gonna draw our center line is because I don't know how far I want the chin to be. I don't know that yet, so I'm gonna just draw this down here. Okay. Now, one thing that you have to understand too, we're going to switch back here. One thing you need to understand is that, okay, so just like how we talked about before, so the head, imagine like a tennis ball, and you slice off the sides. That's basically kind of what a skeleton head shape is more equivalent to. Okay. So I'm going to illustrate that here. So that is why, so we have this area right? That's our center line. Center line. And we're going to draw, so imagine this is a tennis ball. We're going to just like chop off the sides a little bit. Do little ovals here. Right? Maybe that's a little bit too much, but it's okay. Okay? So what we did was we created these sides here, the temple, this temple area. That's what we just did. Okay? Now, we're going to draw our brow line, right? And that goes right in the middle of this, right? So now we have our brow line, we have our temples, and we have this center line here. So, and remember the eyes are gonna fit inside of this socket, inside of these holes here, right? So, and just like we have our last lesson, we're gonna draw the jaw connects, it goes all the way up around here in this area where near your ear. So let's say if I want my jaw to stop right here, right? It's gonna go like halfway in between these, in between your temples. So we're just gonna draw a line like this and draw another line like that. So this is where I want my jaw to stop, here and here, okay? So now we have kind of the basics, okay? Now what you want to also remember, because we're drawing a more detailed version of a head now, and we've practiced doing those other measurements, we need to map up a few more things now, okay? So if you, the head is basically, there's 3 basic parts of the head. The head is divided up into thirds, okay, like this. So your forehead is in this area, you have your eyebrow line, your nose is in this area, right, and your mouth is in this area, and your chin is down here. So we have our mouth like that, we have our nose, our eyebrow line, and remember, this is your eyebrow line. Your eyes don't go up here, right? This is your eyebrow line. Your eyebrows go beneath that, inside of these sockets, right? So your eyes are here and here. Your nose, your mouth, put a little mouth down there, and then so that's how your head is actually shaped like this. Okay, it's in thirds. Okay, so keeping that in mind, keeping that in mind, what we're going to do is map out those thirds here. Okay, so say if I want my mark where the top of my head, my hairline is going to be, it's going to start here, right? So that's going to be where my hair is, and if I measure like this down here, that's where my nose is going to stop here. That's where my nose stops, and then this is where my chin is. Okay, so it's divided up in thirds like that. Okay, all right, so we've kind of mapped out the areas where our head is. Now, because we're going to work on placement of our features, there's a few other tricks that you should know. Okay, one thing that I like to do is either I usually start with the nose or I start with the eyes, and there's a reason for that. So if I start with the eyes, I like to use the eyes as a way to measure the rest of the face as well. Okay, and what I mean by that is this. So if you look at the space between your eyes, I draw an eye here. Where you place the next eye, you know, you don't want to place the next eye way over here, right? You know, and how to align them properly. And a good trick to that is if you take the distance, the width of this eye and move it over like that, get a good measurement here to here, and you draw another eye, that's generally where your next eye is going to be. So you're going to have, there's, if you can imagine a third eye in between this space here, that's, you're going to, one eye, skip a space, and then the third eye, I mean the second eye. That's how you can measure where to put your eyes. There's another eye, you know, you don't draw that, but you can just measure your eye here, and then that's where your second eye is going to be. Okay? So that's a good trick, to positioning the eyes. So we know that your eyebrow, so I'm just going to ahead and draw some very generic eyebrows. We know our eyebrows are here, okay? We know that. And if you look at the skull, you can see these holes. That's where your eye, that's the eye socket where your eyeball fits into, right? So that area is around here. So this is your socket that the eye fits into. Kind of looks like he's wearing glasses on. But that's the socket where your eye fits into, and this is where your nose area is, like that. Okay? So we're going to draw our eye in this area. I'm trying to get it as balanced as I can, and I'm going to make sure. Now you also want to make sure that you see the center line. When you're moving your eyes, you want to make sure that this area is centered, you know, with this line. So here, eye. So right off the bat, I know my measurements are a little bit off. And this is why sometimes I like to start with the nose, actually, because the nose is where? The nose is right in the middle of your face. It's in the middle of your face. So I usually, sometimes I'll start with the nose instead of the eyes. So, but the reason why I didn't do that this time is because I wanted to show you something, okay? And that thing is this. So if I'm looking straight ahead at you, and I'm not looking, you know, down or farther up, if you take the width of the eye, just like we talked about here, if you take the width of the eye here, or the length of it, and then you turn it this way. So if I do this, if I take this distance here, and I turn it like this, and I put a little dot down here, usually that is the spot where your nostril is going to start. It's going to start there. So your nostril is, you know, you have your nose, right? You got your nose, right? You got your nose. This nostril, the top part of it, right? That's the top part of it, like that. So that top part is usually going to be sort of around this area. And so the other measurement that we use, which is another reason why sometimes I like to do the nose first, is because the nose fits inside of this area. So if I have this and this, and then I just do something like that, you know, that's usually where your nose goes. It fits inside of that space between your eyes. Now, but depending upon who you're drawing, it may change just a little bit. You know, sometimes your nose may just be a little bit wider, or your eyes may be a little bit wider. But it's on some very small level. It's not going to exaggerate hugely on that. Okay. So we have our eyes here. Then you have another eye in between that, and then we have our nose area, and then we have our eyebrows. Okay. So next we need to place the mouth. Okay. And the area in between your nose and the top of your top lip is called the flume, and that's this area. That's this area right here. That area between there. Usually, if you measure the height of your eye, so if I were to draw the height, measure this right here, if I take that area and I move that down here to the nose, usually that is usually about where your mouth is going to start. You know, it's a good guess. It won't always be that way, but like, you know, with small increments it may change, but for the most part that's usually where it is. Okay, so you have the top of your mouth here, and when you draw your eyeballs, usually if I'm looking straight ahead at you, the very corners of your mouth line up with the edges of your eye, of your eyeball. I mean your pupil in there. So if I do this, we're gonna draw. Let's just draw basic kind of line here, like this, and then we're gonna draw our lip like that. Okay, so that's usually about how it works. Now how we get someone to look or capture a likeness of someone is, you know, how thin we draw the lips, the curves of the lips. You know, everyone's lips are shaped differently, just like everyone's eyes are shaped differently. Sometimes they may be a little slanted, sometimes they may be droop down a little bit. Sometimes, you know, your mouth does the same thing, goes up, goes down. You have thinner lips, you have more like pushed together lips, smooshed lips. You know, sometimes noses are flatter or wider, or all that kind of stuff. So, but generally, as a basic rule, this is how we line up all the features on our face. Okay, and then next comes into play, remember when we talked about last time, were the ears, how the ears line up with the brow and underneath the nose. So we have the top of the ear would be here, and remember this is our temple area. So we don't draw, we've imagined that we've cut that area off, remember? So we're going to start here. The ear goes like this, and we're going to go to the bottom of our nose like that. And we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Right? Like that. And then we're going to draw our little ear parts inside of there. Okay, so that's generally where the ears go. Okay, and then you can just draw your jaw in there. Now this pen is not working very well with me right now, so you have to excuse the sketchy lines, but basically this is how it works. Okay, so here, and then what we want to do is draw the rest of our head like that. And then we have our, remember it's in thirds, so this come down just a little bit more. We're going to draw. Now when you're drawing the edges of your hairline, the corners of that usually go here with the outside corner of your eye. So here, and over and around like that, and like that. And so there. So now we have our person. Like I said, this is a more advanced way to draw features. A person is more, this is probably the most accurate way to get these details down in there. And we're going to put a little shadow on his top lip. I don't know if you guys know that, but your top lip, because when the light hits, your lip is actually at an angle, and so your top lip is usually going to be a little bit darker than your bottom lip because your bottom lip catches the light and your top lip does not. So we're going to do that. Put a little thing here. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's a little sleepy. We can add a little bit of character to his eyebrows. You know, something like that. And we remember we have our cheeks. Whatever, go around. Something like that. I don't know. Okay. So that's basically how we do that. And because we've understand how to turn our head, remember we were doing this. Just because when we understand how we turn our head, we use those same principles that we learned to draw it at a different angle. So I'm going to change paper. Get another sheet here. Just going to put this around, and we're going to do another one. And I'm going to show you how to turn it. So next, right? We always have our circle. Right? We have our circle here. Now remember how we turn our head. We draw the line on the side that we're going to draw. So if I want to draw this head facing towards my right this way, that means I can't put that line over here. I can't put it in the middle. I have to put it far over towards the right side of this circle. So, you know, here. Okay. Now, if you imagine a ball, remember we talked about cutting the sides of that of a tennis ball. When a ball turns, you're only going to see that one side, remember? Like we talked about. So this area, you're going to cut like a little slice off to make that side of the head, okay? So that means we're going to do an oval here, like that. Remember, the other one will be on this side, so you won't be able to see it. And then we do a brow line, which is in the middle of this, like that, okay? And where's our jaw? So we look here, see where our jaw connects. It goes here and goes around like that. So we're going to draw a line here. That goes, you're going to make this middle, it goes in the middle of this, of your oval. All right, and let's go ahead and kind of map out where we want the top of our head to be. The reason why I'm doing that is so we can measure our thirds, okay? So let's say I want the top of my head to be here. Measure third here, and measure third here, which also is closely at the bottom part of this circle. So third here, third here, third here. I'm going to mark that. And that means my jaw is going to go like that, okay, to this third. And then we're just going to draw the other side like that, okay? All right, so next what we need to do is we need to place our features in our head, okay? So remember, these are your eyebrows. This is not where your eyes go. These are the eyebrows. Now in this situation, I would probably draw the nose first. And one of the reasons why is because, remember, as we turn our heads, the space between our eyes, that trick doesn't work anymore, remember? So we have our eye here, we measure this one space, and we put it here, right? This trick, it doesn't really work that well anymore because we've turned our head. And as we turn our head, that space is different, okay? So, we're gonna draw in our nose. I'm gonna add our nose here first. So here, and we're gonna add this nostril, something like this. It's not the best nose in the world, but it'll do for right now. Okay. All right. So we have that. And remember, we have our nose here. So what we're going to do is, remember I told you this line still applies. So my eye, we know our eye is going to be, it cannot go past this area. Okay. And if we measure this, we can put our eye right here, like that. Okay. And he's going to be looking this way. Okay. That's how we're going to do that. And so if we do our eye trick, our eye is going to be off a little bit. It's going to be off a little bit. And so what we do is we're going to have to kind of guesstimate a little bit about where that eye actually is. Now when you're drawing the side eye here, so it's not going to be a straight curve like that, okay? As we turn our eye looks more like a C kind of shaped eye. See that? Like you have a C as it turns, because this is the bone, that bone. Remember I told you about that bone that's here on the top of the skull? That bone, when you turn it, sorry, it's not in focus here. That bone, when you turn it, you're gonna see the edge of that, and that's where your nose is gonna be, right? So, and that's basically what we're simulating, okay? So that's gonna be like more of a C shape kind of eye, all right? So now that we've established that, now we can place our mouth. So here and here. So our mouth is probably going to be around this area. Now, where we place our mouth, because this line, if you want to imagine, if you draw a ball, right? If we draw a ball here, and we know if I had painted a line on this ball, the line would look more like this. It would curve around like that, okay? And if I draw my jaw, imagine if this is another ball here, then it would curve around like that, okay? And that's where you're, right? So if you can imagine, we have this curve like this, and we curve, that means the mouth, the middle of the mouth would start around here. So we're gonna put the top kind of like that. And we're going to make this side a little bit longer than this side because our mouth is turned. And then we're going to draw the bottom part like this. And then we're going to draw the lips. So remember, because it's turned, what happens? We cannot see the other side, right? One side is shown more than the other. So just like his nose, you see more of this side than you do of that side. And just like his lips, you see more of this side than you do of this side, okay? That's because we've turned our head. And when we turn our head, we can't see the other side as well as we can see this side, okay? And that's why we do that. That's why this side is a little bit longer, okay? All right, next, we'll put a little shadow underneath his mouth here, like that. Put a little thing right there. All right, so next, fix up his nose. We're going to draw the outer edges of, I almost forgot, we got to draw his ear. All right, so the ear, top of the ear is around here. The bottom of the ear goes with the nose. And then we're just gonna Draw. Now, ears are not exactly a C shape. They have some character to them. They're not, that's, you know, sure, that's an, yes, you can draw an ear that way, but it's very cartoon looking, stylized, you know, kind of ear. Most ears have like other curves and shapes to them, okay? And so up here, like this, all right? That's a more accurate portrayal of what a real ear looks like, okay? And we're gonna draw our jaw now. Remember, it's gonna go to this line. I'm gonna turn my paper. It's gonna be something like that. Now this area here, so remember we're drawing the skull, and you know our heads have this space in between our nose and our head because the bottom part, sorry, trying to get this in focus here. The bottom part of the skull protrudes out a little bit further than the top part, right? And that's where we get this we can get this dip here where the eye is, right? That eye between the brow, where that brow is. And it's actually what we're looking at is that hole that's in this head. When you turn it sideways, you can even feel it. That hole there is where this dip is, right here. That's where the eye socket's in. So we're gonna make that little dip, put a little cheekbone in there, and we're gonna curve this back in a little bit and curve it around like that. His chin is kind of weird right now, but okay. And then next, we're gonna fix his head up a little bit, go around like that. Fix this area here. And then we're gonna draw our, remember it's in thirds, here. So our hairline is here, goes around, cuts near the eye area. Now that's also gonna change here or there, but usually it's around that area. And then we're gonna put our hair, and we're gonna shake this in a little bit like that, and we're gonna give this guy some better eyebrows. Shade those in a little bit more, and you know, maybe shade in this a little bit more. And this is how we draw more accurate, and more, the more details you put in there, the more realistic or more believable your person is going to be. Now, if you put too many wrinkles in, he'll start to look like an old man. Unless you want it to look like an old man or woman, you can do that. But so that's the basic. That's how we draw more realistic faces now. And we're gonna draw our neck. Neck connects to here, and we're gonna draw that little shadow under here. And this way, he's got those little vein things in your neck. So my pen is trying to not write too well. That's why I'm being so sketchy right now. But that's how you do that, okay? So we've turned our head. So we've gone from, bring up my examples here. So remember, we've gone from this basic circle, okay, basic shapes, and then we did this, right, where we added this bottom part and we turned those, right, still using more basic shapes. And then we went from here, we expanded on this idea, and really went in and figured out the measurements on this head and tried to get it more accurate. Okay, and now we have this, which we've turned his head, right? And look at that, they look kind of similar here. You see that? And that's all because of our measurements. It's because of our measurements and how we measure the face. And so that's another way that you can also remember, if you make up a character, if you know the proportions of their face, you know, you can draw it and it'll still roughly look like that person, okay? So the chin on this one's just a little bit different here. But, okay, so let's try to draw another one. We're going to try to draw another one. So we're going to do an up and a down. And because these drawings are a bit more complicated, I'm not going to do as many drawings this time. I'm probably just going to do 2 more, and just to show you an example, okay? So when drawing a head going downwards, okay, we have to remember that, you know, okay, so we're going to have, we're going to do this one looking down at an angle. Actually, no, I'll let you figure that one out, because down an angle, like I said, you just combine those other tricks that we have. I'm just going to show you how to do one going straight down, because I feel like that might be a better way to start off, because once you start turning it and going downwards, there's some more tricky areas, and it's probably something, you know, that's a bit more complicated. So we have our center line. Remember, we're gonna cut our sides off. We're still doing that. Now, when you want something to look downwards, our perspective is going to change, right? So look at his eyes. See, as he goes down, he gets his forehead, his head gets bigger because you see more of it. And you see less of his eyes, less of his nose, and less of his chin, okay? So that means, I'm just going to draw this line here. So that means this angle is going to arc downward like this. It's going to be more like this. So your brow line is going to curve down. So if I have a ball and I spray painted on that ball, and I tilted that ball downwards, that line is going to look like this. It's going to look like that. Okay. So that's what we have. So our eyebrow line is actually this line, and it's curving around this ball. Okay. And our nose, now there is no specific measurement. You're going to have to, depend upon how much the head is turned downward or upward, depends on, you know, these measurements here. So, but we're gonna kind of guess on this one here. We're just gonna say that I want from this point, that's where the ears are. Say I want my chin to be like this. Okay. All right. So I'm kind of going to guess on this one, and I'm going to put my nose here. Okay. And for this one, I would probably draw my nose first, just to help me get an idea of the rest of what the rest is going to look like. Now remember, as we look down, what happens to our nose? It points down. As we look up, it points up. Okay. So we have this. We have our nostrils here. And I like to put a little ball right here just to remind me that, hey, that's a shape. It's a 3D shape. And then that's where this bone is here. Okay. So the one rule that does still apply is where my eyes go here, right? So we know, since this is the eyebrow, okay, that's not the eye. We don't put the eye here. We put it underneath here. we're going to draw our eye underneath that, and we're going to make this more oval-like, because you know, as you look down, your eyes get more oval-like, and as you look up, they get more oval-like. So we're going to do that, and we're going to try to, right, we're going to do our little, we can still use our third 3 eyes trick here. We can still use that because that's not really affected by this angle here. So it's going to be around here. Like that. And our eyebrows are much, much closer to our eyes because that's where the brow line is. Okay. All right. And he's going to be looking at you like that. All right. So next we have our lips, right? And at this, from this angle, this would still apply as well. So the only difference would be is where we put our mouth. So as I look down, the distance here, that decreases. So I need to draw it closer. So the bottom of my mouth is probably going to be like, the bottom of my top lip is probably going to be like right here, this area. And it's also going to kind of curve up a little bit. Now, it may not always do that depending on who you're drawing, but for the most part, it'll curve like that. And then we have our bottom lip here. And then we're going to fill that in a little bit. Okay. And then we have our hairline. So, well, actually, let's go ahead and draw our jaw first, because that's going to help us position. Now, remember, as we're looking downward, right? We have these chin bones. See these chin bones here? I'm trying to get this in focus so you guys can see it. So these chin bones here, as we're looking down, you see how that, so your skin goes over that and around that, right? So we have to make up for that. We have to draw that. So our bone would be right in this area, and then we're going to come in a little bit, and we're going to make our chin here. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Like that. Okay. Like that. And so, what are these? Guess what? Those were the ears, remember? Remember how I told you that when we look down, our ears go up? And as we look up, our ears come down? This is the point here where our ears would be. So you could draw that up here, and they're thin like that. It'd be thin, the thin lines. Then you know, you don't want to draw his ears out like a car, because then he looked like Dumbo. He'd be like, he started looking like a mouse or something, some kind of elephant or something. He would draw his ears sticking way out like that. Okay, so his ears are close to his head. Okay, and then we're gonna draw. So our head, because our head is bulbous, you know, our skull is big. We're not gonna draw the skull starting here. It's gonna be a little bit behind the ear here. And then we're going to draw a circle, our round shape here, like that. Okay. And next, the last thing we have to do is figure out where our eyebrow line is. And so, again, Depending on what you're looking at, whether it's a photograph or something, you could just measure the distance between that. I don't really have a trick. There's no real trick that I know of to figure out the space in between here. You just have to look at what your subject is and kind of, use other measurements to determine about where that area is. So right now I'm kind of looking at myself in this camera up here. I'm kind of looking at myself saying, okay, where is this line? Roughly where should this line go? So here, something like that. All right, so there. So now we have, shade this in a little bit. Give him some character. Put some lines in here, right? And there we have a head that's looking downwards, right? And also, so if you're drawing, remember when we're looking down, we see less of our neck, right? So I'm gonna just draw this, have a little bit area of where the neck would be, like a little shadow or something. And he's got a shirt on. There you go, he's looking down. Put a little more shadow down here. Like that. Okay? And now that I'm looking at it, I probably drew this line a little bit too high. It's probably too high up here. It should probably be bigger. But as we go, we can figure that out, okay? And so the last one that we're gonna do is looking upwards. Now, you may think I'm kind of going through these kind of quickly, but if we've watched the other two videos, you'll understand what we're doing here, and I'll go back over it with you again at the end here, okay? So this one we're gonna look up, right? So I'm gonna draw my circle. We're gonna cut off the sides of our circle, of our ball. We have our center line up here. And just like, remember I told you, if I drew a ball, if I painted a strip on a ball, if I turn that ball upwards, that stripe, that line on that ball is going to look like this, right? So you go from the temple area and curve it upwards like that, okay? Now, here's the tricky thing with, I feel like making the head look upwards is probably one of the tougher things to do, which is why I kind of saved it for last, because I will probably mess up on this. But so one of my things that I like to do, because I usually, and when you're drawing, you want to pay attention to your own habits. I have a habit of, when I'm drawing people looking upwards, to really shy away from putting the nose really high as I know it should be. So usually what I like to do is, if I'm looking up like this, I draw the nose first, just because it forces me to kind of deal with it. So I'm just going to put my nose way up here. This is probably not the best nose ever. Let's look at her. But, we're going to make it work here. All right, so little nostrils. It's kind of too big, but it's okay. It's okay. All right, so we have our nose up here. All right. Now, what we're going to do is our eyes. So as we're looking up, we see our nose is way up here, and our eyes are here. So we still have those rules of, where we place our eyes. And we're going to measure here, like that. But we're going to curve our eyes. to match our eyebrow line, our brow line. So we're going to curve that like this. And then we're going to open it up a little bit like that. And this will be where the eyeball is. Now this, one of the things that makes this angle particularly tricky is because, you know, if my eyes up here and my eyebrows are above that, we don't have a whole lot of space to put our eyebrows, because they're right, everything is kind of right on top of each other almost, okay? And sometimes it can look really strange, but that's the way we do that. Okay, so next we have what? We have our mouth, obviously. And again, you're gonna have to kind of just look at your resource, whatever photograph, or if you're looking at stuff in the mirror, to determine the space in between here, because it depends on how far up you're looking or how far down you're looking, you know, what that space is going to be. So make sure this is in the middle. So we have our, let's make it a little bit higher. All right, and we're going to have the same rules apply for the corners of the mouth like we talked about before. And this is going to angle like that. It's going to angle, because remember, we want to match that curve of the ball, just like this ball over here. We want to match those curves going around our ball, okay? So here, and then we're going to attach our lips like this. Shade this in. Now, one thing to remember here is that when you're looking upwards, your lip here is going to flatten out the bottom part of your lip. So we have, you know, we have our top part of our lip, right? And we have our bottom part of our lip. As we look upwards, we're going to see, visually, we're going to see more of this area than we are of this area, okay? And the bottom part is going to flatten out a little bit, okay? So it'll still be round to some degree, but it's going to have a more flattened area to it, okay? And again, it really depends. It also depends on what, you know, your lips are shaped like or who you're looking at, because it will be different from every person, okay? So next, we need to figure out, you know, we have our, you draw these straight line here on your temple area, because that's the side of our heads here. And we're gonna draw, guess we should put in our ears. So remember, ears go down as I look up, and ears go up as I look down. So, and also the ears, when you're looking up, the ears have like a kind of triangular kind of shape to it. It's more like this, right? So we have our, it's not like a C shape. They kind of angle, you know, this way. So we have the top part of our ears here. Something like that. We're just going to put little placeholders for now, just to remind us where they are. And the reason why I'm doing that is so we can put in our jaw here, which would be, start here. Now, when we're drawing a jaw area, sometimes what I like to do is actually not really draw the whole thing. Because remember, when we're looking at our skeleton, as we look up, you see how this V shape here, the chin, as you angle it up, this angle, right, that's what you have here. So my chin is really, the bottom part of my chin, that pointing tip, is actually about right here. Okay, so that's really about, you know, where the chin is. But this bone underneath here, that is this. So we have this down here. That is this area. It goes like that. So sometimes I really don't even try to even draw that area. I let your mind fill that in, and so I don't really draw it, and then I just draw the neck, connect it to that, and you can use shadow to kind of put that part in for you. Okay, so we have this. Draw his neck here. Okay, so we have that jaw area. It's down here. See, if you feel that, you can feel that. See that? This area. And now we can kind of fill in where the top of our head is going to be. It's going to be like right here. You're going to see very little of the top part of the head. It's going to be very thin, very small. And draw a little bit of the hair, just a little bit of it. Like that. Like I said, my pen is kind of not cooperating here with me a little bit, so alright. And then come in with our ears. Make sure they're aligned, you know. Anytime you're drawing a person, you always want to make sure that everything is aligned so it's not, you know, wonky. So your ears are something like this. Like that. And there you go. We have a person looking up. Got these chin marks here. And like that. Oh, and also we have these shadows underneath our brow line because that's the light isn't touching that area. And we have our little shadows, the nose area. And there you go. So that's how we draw our person looking up. Now, as I mentioned before, let's go over some things that we did here to kind of show you what's going on here. All right. So, like I said, we did this one already. This is our beginning. We have our step 2, our second level. Now we have our third level here. Okay. So we went over our measurements for the eyes. We're using our eyes to help measure our face. The distance between the eyes here. So we have, one eye, skip a space, another eye. We also have the distance here. We take our length of this eye and turn it. That's the top of this nostril here. And we also take the width of our eye, height of our eye, and put it here, and that'd be the distance here. We also talked about the thirds, how everything is in thirds in our head here, as this diagram is here. See, we got 1, 2, 3 parts like that. And we also have, this is when we're turning the face, we have those same measurements, but we just turn them just the same way like we turned his head here. We just do the same thing, but with a little bit more sophistication. We take a few more things into account. We added the jawline before, we have a more defined shaped ear, mouth, nose, etc. Okay. And then we have, looking downward, we have those same some of those same principles apply. We just focus everything on the lower part. See that? The lower part of our diagram, because our head gets bigger. And in here, most of everything is at the top, right? Because we're looking upwards, okay? And even if you look at this person, it relatively looks like the same person. This one's probably the most that doesn't look like this guy. But his head's probably too wide. It probably should be like smaller like that. But that's how we do that, okay? And I think a good exercise or a good trick for you would be to try to figure out how you can draw the head going diagonal downwards. Like again, we talked about before. So if I do it this way, and you have your like this, like that, it would be like this, right? And your mouth. We did that on this version. We were experimenting with that. Let's see if I can find it for you. So remember when we did these, it's the same idea. It's just a little bit more complicated because we are adding more realistic features in the face. But it's basically the same principle. So it's the same kind of thing. Our eye. We have another eye here. We have our mouth here. And we have this area here. We have our jaw here. And this goes around like this. We have our ear like this. Around like that. So see how quickly we can do this once we understand where things are and how to manipulate those things. It doesn't take us a lot of time to do this because we know where everything is supposed to be. And that's the advantage of really understanding how things are made up, the simple shapes, and the basic shapes of the skull, or really anything. It allows us to turn things in any direction that we want fairly easy, okay? And without using a lot of time. We can just do that, okay? So that's it for now, and thanks so much, and I hope that you've learned a lot. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you find the time to, if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to look at the video again, go back, if you have to just even practice just a certain part of, hey, what if I just practiced moving the ball around, moving the head, left and right, or up or down, or changing it that way. What if I worked on just moving the eyes up and down, or the nose, or the mouth? You don't have to do everything all at once. Take your time. Do it in a way that's the way you understand. And besides, we always have these videos here, so you can always press pause, figure it out, or you can always rewind it. And really do take the time to look at the first videos as well, because it really helps explain a lot. especially these are some simple principles that if when you combine them all together, they create a more believable, realistic head. And that's what really a lot of art is. It's just basically combining small principles, basic shapes, and expanding upon them and making them a little bit more refined as we go. Okay, so you have a great day, and thanks for hanging out with me. It's been Winfred Hawkins with Arts Revive, and I hope you have fun drawing.